right. What's up? This is Faith and CK coming in with a commendable faith movie review. Today we're going to be reviewing the movie Woman King. And I can't tell you how much I loved seeing this movie. This movie was a masterpiece, okay? I don't know what everybody else was talking about. I don't know what movie they were looking at, CK.
To be honest, I think they didn't even watch the movie.
I'm kind of thinking, yeah, they didn't watch the movie. I think they did a review of other reviews that they saw, and then they
Mm-hmm.
just said, "Okay, yeah, I watched it," because the reviews that I saw them do and the movie that I watched, it's not matching. These things it's the math is not mathing from what they're saying the movie was about and what I actually saw. So for people who looked at other people's movies reviews and you're just going solely off of what other people said the movie was about, I think you might want to see the movie for your damn self. What do you think, CK?
I agree. I just saw someone do a YouTube short saying that slavery was nowhere in the movie. And I'm like, every scene, well, not every scene, but every act included an aspect of slavery. So it there's a lot of people who they really are just focused on an agenda of boycotting the movie because of different agendas that they have on their channel with the content that they do. And if if it sounds like they're just attacking the movie just for the sake of attacking it, it more than likely means that they don't like black women, don't like black people, or they weren't paid to give a positive review and they're just going to crap on it and join the go along, get along gang.
Now I must say, CK and I had an awesome time. We went on a date. What was the movie theater that we went to? Was it Harkins?
AMC.
AMC?
Yep,
I
with the
love,
reclining.
oh yeah, with the reclining movie seats. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it. It was quite relaxing, quite
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable.
Yeah, they had
Um,
they had
mhm.
really great surround sounds. It that actually added to the experience for me because with the action scenes, it I almost felt it in my chest. So AMC was a great had a great facility there. We didn't go to the Mullick the bar they had there. They actually had a alcohol bar right next to that women's bathroom. I know you probably didn't see it, but we didn't do any. We didn't get any alcohol, y'all. So while we're
Yeah,
giving this
we
review, don't think we were just drunk or anything.
exactly. We wanted to be completely sober when we gave this review, so we did not drink any other alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. So much to unpack with this whole movie thing. Did you just want to dive right in, CK?
Yeah. I think we should. I'll So starting off, The Woman King, directed by Gina Prince, story by Maria Bello and Dana Stevens, starring Viola Davis, Thuso Medu, Lashana Lynch, Sheila Atom, and John Boyega. So, Woman King is a 2022 American historical epic film about the Agojie. And also, spoiler alert if you have not seen The Woman King. We're going to unpack spoilers, give our take on it, and we're going to get knee deep in it. So, we'll give you a few seconds before jumping into spoilers. I'm just going to continue with the introduction before we kind of go through different areas that we're going to tackle. So again, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. This is a spoiler review slash spoiler discussion. All right. So I think everybody who doesn't want it spoiled has already left. And even if you have not seen it and you watch our spoiler review, spoiler discussion, still go see it for yourself because it is definitely an experience that's worth every penny. So, The Woman King is a 2022 American historical epic film about the Agojie, the all female warrior unit that protected the West African kingdom of Dahomey during the 17th to 19th centuries. Set in the 1820s, the film stars Viola Davis as a general who trains the next generation of warriors to fight their enemies. All right,
And
so I'll go ahead.
I just want to point out real quick because this movie is based on a true story. Okay, it's
Mm-hmm.
based on the actual Agojie tribe. And when it says that a movie is based on a true story, it does not mean that it's actually going to have the real people, okay, in the story. Some of the characters may be fictional. So that's the reason why they always put based on a true story, but it is not a true story. So I just want people to keep that in mind when they're talking about fake Black history.
I agree, and even though this is not really a part of the production, I want to kind of include this. Um, the Woman King was projected to gross around $12 million in its opening weekend, and at some studios even estimated it's going to reach 16 million. The film made $6.8 million on its first day, and it has outperformed. And right now, as of September 24th, it has grossed $19 million and counting. Audiences have polled. Audiences polled by Cinema Score gave the film A plus on an A plus to F scale, with Post Track giving the film a 95% overall positive score. And it's gotten lots of positive reviews, including Metacritic, which gave the film a 76 out of 100 based on 45 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. So right now, review wise, by the professionals who actually get paid to do this, they've given it a positive rating. It has exceeded expectations as far as the box office and is going to make more money. So this is an epic success so far, with more great things to go or to come.
Exactly.
You got
And
anything,
they
Faith?
have I wanted to add that they also have a I believe a contract with Netflix. So it still has a couple of weeks to run through the box office and it's already at 19 million. And then once those 2 weeks are up, they're probably going to make their production costs on top of what they've already contracted out with Netflix. So for all the people saying that this movie was a flop, um, I don't think so.
Right, right. So they've already gotten $28 million against a $50 million budget. So they're gonna more than likely meet that and exceed it because it just came out September 16th. So when people are saying that it's flopped, it they're going off of just the first day, because most of the time with movies, a studio might make its money back as far as budget on the first day. It taking maybe a week or two is not a failure. That's just how normal movies are that do not have an established, I'm going to say, just an establishment like a Marvel film or a DC film or a film with action stars that are more well known than Viola Davis. I mean, this movie had a lot of people who were supporting characters in other movies, so for them to carry the movie the way they did and the way the performance was just speaks volumes to how great the talent was in this motion picture. So you got anything, Faith, before we go into the plot?
No, I wanted you to go into the plot and also introduce the characters.
All right. So again, starring in the movie, we have Viola Davis as the general. Uh, hmm. There she is right there. Viola Davis as the general. Then next we have Fuso Mebdu as Nawi. That's so the story was told through the eyes of her, and she can be considered the main protagonist. Next is Lashana Lynch, who played Agojie. She was the main one to train the main protagonist. Then you have Sheila Atom as Amenza. She plays like a spiritual guide and friend to the general, to Viola Davis's character. And last we have John Boyega as King Gezo. Now, one person I want to highlight, which I mentioned before, was the director. So one criticism a lot of people have had is, well, the movie was written by white people. This is not written for us black people. So the director, Gina Prince, she wrote on several black shows, including A Different World. And no matter who wrote the movie, as far as the script, the director has the final say so as far as pacing, as far as making changes in the TMZ, the 12-mile zone or 20-mile zone, where they're doing the performance. She has the final say so on what happens and what does not happen. And because she is biracial, and the actors and actresses that were in the film were black, you could say this is somewhat of a black movie all the way around. Just because someone who's white wrote it doesn't necessarily mean it's a white movie. You got anything, Faith?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the hypocrisy of some of you. When Black Panther came out, that was what wasn't that a Marvel movie?
Yep, Marvel.
And Marvel is a white company.
You say
Nobody
Marvel.
was nobody was it is it Marvel or Marvel?
Marvel. It's
Marvel. I'm
okay.
sorry.
Sorry about that. No, it's okay.
My bad. Let me get it right. Marvel.
Sorry.
But Marvel is a white company is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
pointing out. And when Black Panther came out, nobody had any of these arguments when it was Black Panther. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to point this out. Nobody was talking about, oh, Black Panther's going to flop like you were really wishing the movie to fail. As a matter of fact, you Negroes went to the box office dressed up like you were going back to Africa or something. Like you
Right.
all were just giddy about that movie. And see, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the reason why I submit to you today that a lot of you just don't like black women. Now, movie where the heroine or the hero is a black man. Oh, you guys are giddy. You can't wait to get to the movies. You're dressing up like you're going back to Africa. It's like all good. But a movie where the heroine is a black woman, all of a sudden, oh, it's not going to do well. You hope it fails. Yada, yada, yada. White supremacy. The movie's not black. It wasn't written by black people. Like, the selective outrage of some of you just really, really grinds my nerve. It does. Because, like I said, none of this outrage was there for Black Panther. So why would it be there for Woman King? But I'm done. Rant over.
Yeah, because Black Panther was written by white people. So I agree. There's a hypocrisy and double standard. Black Panther is not based off of anything historical. Even Wakanda doesn't exist. Neither does Vibranium. So Woman King is based off of a true story, whereas all the characters actually existed except for the general, who is the Woman King. But we'll address that after the plot. So moving into the plot, we'll make it real short, real sweet. In the West African kingdom of Dahomey during the 1820s, General Naniska, leader of the all-female group of warriors, the Agojie, liberates Bohemian women who were abducted by slavers from the Oyo Empire. This provokes King Gezo of Dahomey to prepare for an all-out war with the Oya. Naniska begins to train a new generation of warriors to join the Agojie in order to protect the kingdom. Among these warriors is Nawi, a strong-willed girl who was offered by her father to the king after refusing to marry men who would beat her. Nawi befriends Izagi, a veteran Agojie. She also reveals that she is adopted to Naniska and shows a birthmark on her left shoulder, shocking Naniska. That's the general. European slavers led by Santo Ferreira and accompanied by the half Dohemian Dahomey Malik arrive in Africa as part of an alliance with the Oya, led by General Ad. Nawi encounters Malik while the latter is bathing, and the two become friends. Shortly after graduating from training to become a full-fledged Agojie, Nawi sneaks off to speak with Malik and learns that the Oya are planning to attack. She reports this to the general, who admonishes her for her recklessness. The general reveals that in her youth, she was captured by Oba, raped, and impregnated. After giving birth to a daughter, Naniska embedded with a shark tooth in her left shoulder before giving her away. Naniska extracts the tooth from Nawi, confirming that she is her biological daughter. Naniska leads the Agojie in an attack on the Oa. The attack is successful, but Aba escapes and Nawi and Izagi are captured. One of the captured Agojie slips away and reports the other's fate to Naniska, the general. Gezo prepares to bestow the title of Woman King, his partner and equal in ruling Dahomey, upon the general, but refuses to authorize a rescue mission for the captive Agojie. Meanwhile, Izagi is deleted in an escape attempt, and Malik buys Nawi in order to protect her. The general defies orders and sets out with a group of like-minded warriors to rescue the captives. The chaos allows Nawi to escape and rejoin the general. Malik frees several other slaves who drown Santo, and the general deletes Oba in single combat. The triumphant Agojie return to Dahomey, where Gezo privately and briefly admonishes the general for disobeying him before crowning her the Woman King. After the festivities, the general and Nawi privately acknowledge their familiar relationship. Besides my misspeaking and enunciations, a summary does not do this beautiful movie justice. It
It really doesn't.
it truly was a masterpiece. And so, Faith, you want to kick it off as far as negatives to the movie?
I really hadn't even thought of anything that I didn't like about this movie, to be honest with you. Um, I guess I would have liked to have seen a little bit more background with some of the characters. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as far as the girl's character, and some of her background, as far as like her being an orphan and growing up an orphan. Like, you don't really find that out. It's almost like an afterthought that they put it in the movie, when she's talking to her trainer about her father, being not her real father, but that he adopted her from an orphanage. It just kind of they just kind of threw it in there. I don't really like how they just threw that in there. But other
Right,
than
right.
that, I mean, I can't really think of anything else. Just more character development is what I would have liked to have seen.
I agree. One thing is there definitely was a lack of attention to other trainees besides Nawi. This is Naui right here. It just the way the movie was written and the pacing, it just seemed like Naui was the most important trainee from the get go. So when she won the competition, uh, you know, capstoning their training, I knew she was going to be number one because they gave her attention over other trainees. It'd have been nice for them to have further fleshed out uh, Sheila's character, perhaps having her uh, interact with other trainees and show training and whatnot. Most of the training, mini montage. Well, it really wasn't really a montage. Most of the training that we saw was by the protagonist or the main protagonist, where they showed her training with the scarecrow out there by herself, showing that she was more dedicated than everyone else. And it's just like, okay, they could have shown other trainees maybe out there with her and you know them all getting extra time in together. Another thing is there was a lack of world building with the kingdom of Dahomey. I know in the first act they kind of walked us through the main character's eyes, the protagonist's eyes, going from outside the gate where she pushed down the guy she was supposed to be marrying, and just walked into the city, and everybody, she kind of walked past that to the gates where the women were, and then in the beginning of the first act, where the Agojie were coming back from a battle, how everyone was kind of already staged and looking down because the king didn't want the I guess the men and the boys to look at the Agojie. Maybe it was all the citizens. They could have fleshed out the kingdom more to
Right,
get
because you also didn't really get a good feel for the wives and what their actual role was in the kingdom. You only saw that one wife being more vocal over the rest of the wives, and talking to I guess the eunuch, I guess the one eunuch that was there. I don't even know what that eunuch's role was in the palace, to be honest with you, with the wives or with the king. So you're right. It's kind of like the storytelling, the fleshing out of the characters. To me, they could have done a better job with that. I would have
right,
liked to
right,
gotten a little bit
and
more background on those wives, though.
mm-hmm. And to me, the third thing, well, no, actually, the third was they didn't show the trainees who had washed out from the Agojie training, because they said if you don't make it, you become someone's property or something. I mean, it was kind of, they didn't really show the washed out process or people being washed out. That could have been, they didn't even have to give those actresses lines. They could have just showed them being sold off to some husband or something, or some older man. So there was that, and then the fact that the title itself was a spoiler. So
Right.
going into the movie, I knew Viola Davis was like the more famous of all the actresses. So I assumed that she was going to be the woman king. So throughout the movie, I'm like, okay, this is going to happen. She's going to be made the woman king. And then when she was, I wasn't really surprised. I was more like, because even though you and I, we were talking in the movie theater, Faith, and we looked at each other and both of us said at the same time, Viola Davis's character is going to have to delete the king, John Boyega, because he was in the way.
Yeah, he definitely was in the way. And also, as far as the resources of the kingdom and them relying on the slave trade for their wealth, they could have done a better job with telling the story of how they came to rely on the slave trade for their wealth. They didn't, to me, do enough of a good background story on anything. It's just kind of like everything was just kind of conveyed through word of mouth, but there needed to be more flashback scenes. To me, that would have helped.
Yeah, definitely more telling versus more showing versus telling. There was a lot of narration where there was, different places or different parts where there was information dump. Um, so that's probably, to me, that kind of rounds out the negatives. Do you have anything else, Faith, before we move on to
The
the positives?
positives, oh, I can't wait.
Oh, do you have anything else
No, I
before?
I don't have anything for the negatives.
All right. So despite those nitpicks, because to me that was nitpicking. Besides though that little stuff, to me it was a masterpiece. And we're gonna just dive right into why it is. I know there's some people in the comment section. I don't know if you want to say hello to them before we get into it. A couple of people are saying it's not a masterpiece. So if you want to,
Yeah, I noticed right away there was a lot of hateration coming right in for this movie. I mean, you got Demetrius Higashikata down there. He says, no, we should have went to Cinemark Theater. Then we had, let me see, who was this that came in after him? That guy Mark had a lot to say. It was just a lot of hateration for when we first came in here. A lot of hateration. I just want to give a shout out to Nisha by Nature. She's in the chat. Thank you so much for being a channel member. I really appreciate you, Miss Nisha by Nature. And also, let me go ahead and give you our trademark clap. Hold on a second. Let me go ahead and let me have some fun real quick. I love you guys. All right. Thank you so much for being a
yay.
channel member. All right. So yeah, other than that, it's like, wow. To me, the movie was a masterpiece as well. I have to say, I loved the acting by the actors, and everyone that played in this film did an awesome job. Viola Davis was inspiring. She brought her character to life single-handedly, just with the care that she gave in the fight scenes. I'm talking about, you were there with her. You felt her sadness in the scenes that they went back to when she was reminiscing about how she was raped. When they went back to the scenes about her reminiscing about giving away her child, every scene that she was in, even when she recognized her rapist when he came into the kingdom and they had a face off, you could tell that, she was looking for that recognition, and she was angered by the fact that this person raped her and didn't even remember her when he saw her again. So, all of that was embodied in all of those scenes, and you kind of felt, her the emotion. She gave off great emotion. So, Viola Davis, hands down, all of the A pluses that she got for her acting, she earned it. She really earned it. But did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, so I turned my mic up as well. Hopefully, this sounds better for the audience and for you, Faith. So
Okay.
the pacing was great. I didn't feel like the movie was rushed at any moment. I do believe they really let scenes breathe. Things introduced in the first act were paid off by the third act. I think going in, it's it's real easy to have a suspension of disbelief and maintain it the entire length of the film. And a lot of people who did the review on their own channels, it seemed like they didn't have a suspension of disbelief and they focused on the slavery aspect. Well, slavery was introduced and discussed in every scene of the movie. They communicated effectively that they are participating in the slave trade to keep from being enslaved themselves. And also John Boyega, the king, his brother, who was the previous king, he participated in slavery. And the slavery was so indebted or intertwined in Dahomey that the John Boyega's brother sold their mother into slavery. And I
Oh
liked
yeah.
how they showed John Boyega, who's the king. They mentioned he was young and he was naive when talking to the mixed race guy from, I think it was Spain or France, where the the guy, let me get his actual name. Um, I forgot his name. So, uh, So it's Santo Ferreira, the guy who plays Santo Ferreira. Hopefully, this is not the other guy, but anyway, but the guy who was kind of the love interest of the main character. He was saying that his mother was Dahomey and his father was white. And John Boyega replied that his mother was sold into slavery by his brother when his brother was king. And the mixed race guy was like, well, my mother, I buried her. And John Boyega, being naive, didn't even fathom that his mother's not coming back. She's on a whole other continent. She's never coming back. She may even be deceased. And so different little nuances like that demonstrated how unexperienced and naive John Boyega was. And they sprinkled elements in here and there where John Boyega's character is talking to a council. You know, everyone's on the council is giving him advice. They're discussing on what to do. And one of the council members goes to Viola Davis's character and is like, why does the king talk to you privately and get advice? She replies, because I earned it. And even John Boyega, the king, one of his wives, went to Viola Davis and was like, you know, wanting to work with her to have like a woman empowerment thing. And Viola Davis was like, we'll both talk to him, and whoever he listens to, that's who he listens to. So they set up in the first act that Viola Davis, the general, had the ear of the king, and people were viewing the king as somewhat weak for going to Viola Davis for decisions that positively affected the kingdom. So it paid off in the third act for him to make her the woman king, which is equivalent to another way of saying queen regnant, which is a queen who rules versus a queen consort, which is what those concubine, well, I'm not saying concubine, but what those wives were to the king. So the different wives of the king who were queen consorts, they were trying to gain power, but they weren't going to get it. And it paid off in the third act when she became the woman king. So before I go on with the little list I have, you got anything to add, Faith?
Well, yeah, I wanted to visit a little bit more about this whole council thing, because in the beginning of the movie, one of the wives, as you said, even approached Viola Davis. And at first I thought that she was part of the council, but then I remembered that there was a part in the movie where he was actually admonishing his wife, telling her not to talk to his council members. So it was not in a wife's place to go and be speaking to the king's council. So that wife was overstepping her boundaries. So that's one thing that I noticed. And also the power struggle between the wife and Viola Davis, I did also take note of that. And I also took note of the differences between the women in the kingdom. Now, the regular women in the kingdom, they were just regular women. They were neither fit, feminine, or friendly. They were just kind of neutral. But then you saw the king's wives, and they were all fit, feminine, and friendly, except for that maybe that one wife that was always meddling, in the king's business and going behind his back and talking to the council. And, she seemed to be somewhat power hungry. But it was because she was afraid of losing her position. She was afraid of the kingdom failing and becoming poor. Because remember, Viola Davis had an issue with the entire slave trade that they were doing in the first place. She didn't like the fact that they were actually trading their own people, or not even their own people, but their prisoners over into slavery. And even if they didn't have prisoners, they would sometimes have to trade their own people over into slavery in order to meet their quota so that their kingdom could, continue to prosper. And so she was looking for other alternatives. So she was looking at their natural resources and wanting to use those instead. And the wife was going against Viola Davis's character. The wife did not want there to be any changes. She wanted them to continue the slave trade because she was living a comfortable life, and she knew that that's how the kingdom made the bulk of its riches. So she was going behind her husband's back, talking to the council, trying to convince them not to listen to Viola Davis if she comes in, Viola Davis's character, that is, if she comes in with any other alternatives, because she was afraid that she would fall from her cushy lifestyle. So that's one element of the movie that I did want to kind of bring out and reiterate, because there was power struggles between the wives and Viola Davis's character. Now, as far as people being angry at the movie because they don't like the fact that it depicted Black women as being strong, fierce warriors. I have one thing to say to these people. The movie is literally about Black female warriors. So I don't know what any of you would be expecting to see in a movie about Black female warriors, but Black women being warriors. Like, I kind of have to question the thought process of some of you. Now, if this was a movie about princesses, then you would see dainty, feminine women prancing around looking cute. But this is not a movie about princesses, people. This is a movie about Black female warriors. So you're going to have to get your mindset to see Black women being warriors on battlefields, actually fighting, looking strong. That's what the movie is literally about. So people coming in talking about the women looked hard, the women looked masculine. Oh, here we go, depicting Black women as being masculine again. You had the wives there looking feminine. You had the regular women looking like regular women. You had all different types of women in the movie, just like you got all different types of women in real life. And I'll just leave that right there, sit that right there for you all to marinate on, and I'll pass it over to CK.
Yeah, they definitely addressed that in the movie when in the first act, the main character was talking to two other trainees and was asking why they wanted to join the Agojie. And the second trainee was responded with, "You're either prey or the hunter." So in Dahomey, Dahomey, I keep messing that up. In Dahomey, women were second class and third class citizens. So you were either going to be a man's property or you were going to be in the Agojie. And people need to understand that in Africa, it's still like that as far as Southern Africa and some parts of Central. So with that being said, do you really want to be the property of a man for him to slap you around, abuse you, or do you want to be a warrior? Unfortunately, women are given a non-choice choice in the matter because they're not allowed to be professionals as far as the time period is concerned. And there was a really great job of what any other time period movie does, and that is power scaling. So there's one aspect of one critique people have had is that there's a scene where the where Lashana Lynch's character is in a type of a game or a contest with one of the male soldiers, and they have this weapon in between them with points at the end of each weapon, and both points are up against their shoulders. And the goal is to kind of press it against each other, and the first person who grabs it loses. First person who grabs it loses, meaning they've taken so much pain that they can no longer bear it. And so this scene, like any other movie that depicts war and historical situations, it was used to power scale or show the strength of Lashana and the other Agojie. People have said, "Oh, well, the average woman is stronger than the average man," but they also addressed that in the movie as well, outside of the power scaling, and that the Agojie women were saying that the men put their confidence in their strength and their firearms. We can beat them by moving as one. And they showed it in the choreographed fight scenes where they, using skill and using the men's or opponent's body weight against them, they were able to neutralize or neutralize, defeat, or delete all of their opponents by working as a team. And in the second act, those that weren't a part of the main group and maybe got knocked out like the main character did, or they were separated, they got captured. So them moving as a unit, moving as one, allowed them to defeat a lot of groups that were men that were stronger and had firearms. So the movie did a really great job of illustrating that. It's based off of a true story and events. It's not an autobiography. You do have to go in with a suspension of disbelief. I think a lot of people go in with biases, and there's some people who are like, I'm not going to see the movie, I'm boycotting it, but I'm going to give a review on it. I just saw a YouTube short where somebody said that slavery wasn't addressed anywhere in the movie, and it was ingrained in every act of the movie.
It was addressed all throughout the movie. This is why I can't stand people and they're being disingenuous. I would just rather you just say, okay, I'm going to boycott this movie. I'm not even going to go watch the movie, but I'm going to give a review anyway. I would have just respected them if they had just been honest and said that, because they knew that somebody was going to actually watch the movie and call them out on it. I don't think half of these people that's doing these reviews actually saw the movie, because not only was the slave trade mentioned and enacted all throughout the movie, but that was part of the reason why Viola Davis was searching for a different alternative to a resource besides using people, because she felt that slavery was an abomination. And this was something that was spoken on all throughout the movie. Even the love interest of the main character, the biracial Spaniard black man, he was part black, part white Spaniard. And he was part of the slave trade as far as selling slaves on behalf of the Europeans. And in one scene of the movie where it seemed like it was too much for him to bear to even see the slaves being sold off, especially when he saw his love interest standing up there on the auction block, his I guess the white Spaniard that was with him told him that he was lucky that he wasn't up there on the auction block. So slavery and the slave trade was enacted. It was talked about. It was debated upon. It was one of the main bases for the movie, all throughout the movie. So it's kind of like it's really incredible to me that people can come up here and lie and say that they didn't talk about the slave trade, or they didn't address it in the movie. This is an outright lie.
So I felt the characters were always in danger, and they laid it out that Viola's character, the general, before the scenes of the movie, she had been captured, been raped multiple times by the enemy's general, General Oba Ad, and the opposing force was somewhat ferocious. And I never felt like the warriors in the Agojie tribe were like Mary Sue's. Even, you saw, well, in the second act, a couple of them got captured. The main character got captured. A lot of the women got captured, including Lashana Lynch's character, which I was surprised. I did not see that coming. And Lashana's character was like, I'm prepared to just do a self-deletion, and the main character had to talk her out of it. And Lashana was able to somewhat protect the main character by getting rounds in her back as she was moving away, as they were trying to run away and escape the area where they were selling slaves on the auction block. So I thought that, I mean, I really hate that Lashana's character was deleted. I really wanted her to make it to the end of the movie, and that just shows how they power scaled Lashana's character in like the beginning of the second act to pay off and show the strength of the opposing force by having her captured and then deleted. It's almost like every scene or everything introduced in the first act had a rhyme to it, where the payoff was by the third act. I left the theater without any questions as to different things that happened in the movie. Everything was answered. And if they do a sequel, I think it would be great for a sequel to be kind of like something like an Empire Strikes Back, where maybe the Europeans defeat the Dahomey and enslave them, because they happened in real life. And then maybe a third movie where they take back their French Dahomey area. You got anything, Faith?
Well, I wanted to point to a few of the critics, or some of the critiques of this movie that I saw. There was one particular woman that did a critique of this movie, and she was talking about how she didn't like the fact that they didn't like the fact that women were out on the battlefield battling men, and how she thought that that was just so unlikely. It was an unlikely thing that a woman could actually be on a battlefield, especially a woman as small as the main character. Now, in the beginning of the movie, Viola Davis's character was speaking to the main character, and the main character was calling it witchcraft, or what did she say? It was magic. Those women did out there on the battlefield. And Viola Davis's character laughed at the young girl and told her it's not magic, it's skill. Being a warrior means that you are skilled to fight. So I don't know about any of you. I don't know if any of you have ever actually seen a fight where there's a smaller person versus a larger person. I have. I lived in the ghetto, the hood, I've seen all types of fight. If you're not a skilled fighter, no matter how big you are, going against somebody with skills, that person with skills will annihilate you. No matter how big you are, no matter how strong you think you are. If you're not skilled, if you're not fast, you're going to lose. So for anybody sitting up here saying it's highly unlikely for a woman to be successful out on a battlefield against a man, you're not thinking about these are skilled warriors trained to kill, not just trained to fight. These women were trained to kill. But that's about it. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, CK?
I do. So when I was in the Army, women trained alongside us as men, and they were just as strong as us, just as capable as us, and they were feminine. So I agree with Faith. You do have to have the skill. And in the movie, with the choreography, they demonstrated that each warrior would start with going after the opponent's legs and then jumping on the opponent, using the opponent's weight against them. And the Agojie, they had speed, and they were smaller, so they were harder to catch and do grapple movements with. And then the men, they relied on their firearms. Well, back then they had the gunpowder. The gunpowder, after you do the first round, it takes you maybe like 15 minutes to reload, and doing it under pressure, your firearm is somewhat obsolete after the first round. And this was like a melee situation between two opposing forces. So because the men relied on their strength, and they were bigger and slower, and they relied on their firearms, the Agojie, who trained in guerrilla warfare and trained alongside their infantry brothers and even fought with them, they had the advantage and they showed that. Plus, the Agojie, they had home turf, if you will. The rolling terrain that they were fighting in, the Agojie knew that terrain. So they knew exactly what to expect. And they even had this part where, because the Agojie knew the opposing force was coming to them, they set traps on the ground with the gunpowder. They definitely had the terrain advantage, and they used that, and that's what helped them to have battlefield supremacy against the opposing force. So I agree, Faith. A lot of people are reviewing the movie with a bias, and I think if the
Yes.
movie focused on the men and not the Agojie, people wouldn't have the fake outcry, the backlash. If they focused on the men, or if they showed the women being defeated, captured, and enslaved, people would have probably been happy about that as well.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And the thing about it is, when people are talking about the likelihood of women defeating men, they didn't have in every fight scene where the Agojie women came out triumphant over the men. By the way, spoiler alert, in the fight scenes, you saw women getting knocked out. You saw women falling to the ground. You saw women being killed in those fight scenes. So I don't know how much more true to life you can get by actually watching women fighting. They win some and they lose some. They had a lot of those elements in this film. The women relied a lot on speed. They relied a lot on skill. They relied a lot on learning how to use the weaponry that they were given. Swords, even ropes. And if an opponent on the field fell and they had a firearm, they would pick up that firearm and they were allowed to use that on the battlefield, even though they are not trained with firearms at the palace. So, for a lot of people reviewing this movie, I think that people, like CK said, I agree with CK, they went in with biases. They came back trying to push their agendas. And this is what I don't like, when people have channels where they have a certain agenda that they're pushing. These people cannot give a balanced, unbiased review because of that agenda. So keep that in mind when you listen to some of these people. Some of these people don't like Black women. Some of these people don't even like Black people. And they are coming into this movie review with their biases, with their racism, colorisms, you name whatever ism that they have, and they're coming in here with their biases. I saw somebody post a comment in here earlier that Chrissy, and Chrissy is one of my favorite content creators, by the way, so this is not a hit at her, but they said that she started comparing light-skinned women in The Little Mermaid, um, and dark-skinned women being put on the battlefield. Like, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. If we're talking about the Agojie people, and they have an actual picture of the real Agojie women, by the way. If you're talking about Africa during that time period, we were not whitewashed during that time period. So you're going to see a lot of people that are dark skinned playing this role, and as well it should be. Because even in the actual picture of the Agojie unit, those women were all dark skinned Amazonian warrior women. So it couldn't be nothing but dark skinned women being depicted in this film. So the light skin, dark skin stuff does not make any sense in this instance. CK?
yep, I'm going to show you all a picture of the Agojie tribe that Faith just mentioned, and she's right. They were all dark skinned. So there was a comment where someone was saying, uh, the focus should be on the historical significance of the storyline. So the focus was on the main takeaways of the history of the Agojie tribe. The only thing that really was made up was Viola Davis's character. It was a different character who um, was like, you know, the leader, and there wasn't a woman king, but a woman king position does exist because it's equivalent to a queen that rules. And so you have to go in with a suspension of disbelief because we're talking about storytelling here. And in the vein of storytelling, the story unfolded beautifully. Things that were introduced in the first act were played off by the third. The actors had exceptional performances. There was each actress or each character had their own personality. Different fears were introduced. Everyone had fears that they were afraid of because they were doing the slave trade because it was tradition, but they didn't really want to do it. But it was somewhat of a necessity, and the direction of the movie effectively conveyed that. It was a film full of wonderful characters. It was amusing, entertaining, exciting, definitely thrilling. It was full of tension. They had a build up of tension, and then they had a really great climax in the third act. The story was developed wonderfully. There were somewhat mini plots introduced, such as the Portuguese guy, how he would have been on the slave block if it wasn't for the white guy kind of like keeping him from being up there. And also the fact that the Portuguese guy, he identified as Dahomey, and that's why in the third act he was helping them get free, talking about the main character. One of the most surprising moments for me was finding out that the main character was Viola Davis's daughter. I wasn't expecting that. Another surprising moment for me is when the main character's in the cage, and there's thoughts of, well, okay, she's done. She's done. She's going to be sold into slavery. They're probably going to show her being raped in the movie. And then the camera pans over and you see Lashana in there. And it's just like, whoa, what? How does she get captured? And they built her up to be like this super soldier when in actuality she wasn't. So there was a lot of building up. I'm going to say that it's very realistic as far as the movie. I do believe that the realism is there, that the Agojie tribe, of course, they existed, and I believe it happened the way it was told in the movie. I didn't for 1 second remove my suspension of disbelief. And last thing, for passing it back to Faith, there was parts in the film. So neither Faith or myself were saddened to where it brought tears. Neither one of us got to that point, but it definitely was sad when Lashana's character was deleted.
Yeah,
That definitely was a low point because it just, throughout the movie in the first act, especially, they introduced, hey, where Viola character said, if you get captured, we're not coming back for you. And if you get captured, you're going to be tortured, enslaved, and raped multiple times a night. And no one's going to come to save you. You got to save yourself. And Viola Davis's character, back when she was captured, she had to save herself, and she came back with like 5 heads of her captors. But go ahead.
well, I want to address a lot of people comparing this movie to the Black Panther, because I also compared it to the Black Panther. I noticed, like I said earlier, there was no outcry when the Black Panther came out. And as a matter of fact, Chrissy did a critique about the Black Panther, and she liked how they depicted the warrior women in the Black Panther. I remember her giving that critique, and she had raving reviews about that. She says at first she was worried about how they were going to depict the female warriors in the Black Panther, and she liked it. The depiction of the female warriors in Woman King was really no different than how the female warriors were depicted in Black Panther. So it's just kind of baffling to me how people have a problem with a movie that is literally about female warriors. Once again, the movie is not about Black princesses. The movie is about Black female warriors doing Black female warrior stuff, like killing people on battlefields, getting killed on Black battlefields. And to answer some of the stuff that I see down here by Melanated Vessel, in all of those scenes, the Black women were feeling pain. Viola Davis's character talked about the pain she felt and how she felt getting raped by different soldiers. The scenes where she recognized her rapist and she felt pain. The Black women dying on those battlefields and the pain that you saw those women going through in battle. So nobody's saying that Black women don't feel pain, but hell, fighting hurts. Can we all agree that fighting hurts? It's not supposed to be pleasant. Huh, CK? Have you ever been in a fight?
Plenty. And yeah, it's rough, it's sweaty, it's gritty, your heart's beating, adrenaline's rushing, and you're basically fighting to delete someone. And you're either going to maim the other person, give them a good enough reason to stop fighting, or you're going to have to delete them. So there are a lot of people who said that the women depicted in the movie, they weren't feminine, they were masculine. So those people probably didn't stay for the third act, because after the fighting was over with, they were wearing dresses, they were dancing, they were singing. There was a lot of scenes, second and third act, especially the third act, where they were singing, they were feminine, they even had makeup to a certain extent. They were fit, feminine, friendly. It's just that there was a time and a place for every type of let's say wardrobe that they wore, whereas majority of people are focused on them on the battlefield in that dress, but they actually had dresses on, singing and dancing with each other. At the end of the movie, the general, Viola Davis's character, and her daughter, they acknowledged each other as family and they danced together, and it was a nice scene. And with it being a nice scene, it showed the femininity, it showed them vulnerable, it showed them soft, it showed the other aspect of them that a lot of men didn't get a chance to see, because they dedicated themselves to celibacy and not having a family. So that's what mainly separated the Agojie women from their opponents. Their opponents, including the infantrymen they served beside, they had families. So they had other obligations outside of winning the battle. Whereas the Agojie, they fought to win. They didn't have anything else but each other. They were their own family. So
exactly,
with them going in, they had nothing holding them back, because there was no one waiting for them back home. And that's what allowed them to be ferocious. That's what allowed them to not hold back, move as one, move as a unit, and effectively engage opponents. So it was definitely action-packed. They gave you the strong Black woman. They gave you the feminine, vulnerable Black woman. They gave someone everything who watched the movie. So if you go, I saw one person saying they're watching the movie right now. So if you go in with an open mind and you have a suspension of disbelief, which you should have with every movie, because it's a movie now. This is not It's not us actually traveling back in time and being a fly on their wall. But if you go in with an open mind and just take in the breathtaking views of the battlefield and all of the different artwork you see on the wall, the dress, even the actresses, especially Lashana, they acted like women from that time period in Africa. I believe the accents.
Yes.
And I know some people are going to complain that when they went to speak Dahomey, they were in English. So it's understood that when they're speaking in English, they're speaking Dahomey. But anytime they weren't speaking Dahomey, they would actually speak in that actual like French and actual language. People had a problem with that. And people are acting like it's not a movie, and that's so for me, kind of finishing up as far as my portion of it, and of course we'll keep talking about it. To me, on a scale from 1 to 10, I give this movie a 10. To me, it was the complete package. It's Oscar worthy. I see these actresses going on to do bigger and better things from this movie. It's an international success. I hope it's a part 2. And I know a lot of people have compared it to Black Panther. To me, this, in regards to showing women as warriors and showing African time period and just the choreography, and mind you, the choreography was crisp. There wasn't a lot of cuts like with Black Panther. I think The Woman King is on par with Black Panther minus CGI, if not better, as far as the crisp choreography that the talent displayed in the movie. So I give it a 10 out of 10. What about you, Faith?
I give it a 10 out of 10 too. I think that this movie was done beautifully. And like I said, kudos to the people, the actors in the movie. They really brought their characters to life. They brought real talent into this movie. They really thought it out very, very well as far as picking the people who portrayed the Agojie warriors, women. And the only thing that I would say, my one criticism is I think the actor that played the king, I forget his name, I don't think that he played his part very well. That's just me. I don't think that he was that great of an actor. His acting was a little lackluster in my opinion. But other than that, everybody else was spot on. I mean, even the biracial guy, he did a great job with his role and playing the role of being in between being a white man and being part of Dahomey, because that was his home land that they brought him to. And it's kind of cruel to me that they would bring him back to his homeland as being a slave trader. I thought that was kind of cruel, in my opinion. And so the way that they had his character, as far as how he was doing his scenes, where he was very confused about the whole slave trade situation and how he was just kind of put at odds. And like towards the end of the movie, when the Dahomeys got into war with the other tribe, I forget the name of the other tribe, and they also got into war with the slave traders. At one part in the scene when he was on that boat with the white Portuguese slave trader, he had a decision to make. And what he decided to do was he unshackled all those slaves that was in the boat, and he watched them beat and drown the white Portuguese slave trader. So that was kind of like a nod to him, showing homage to his mother's people. So I liked how they did that in the movie as well. So I think it's a 10 out of 10. They told every aspect of the movie as far as the slave trade. It was mentioned all throughout, even till the end. Like I said, when he unleash the slaves that was in the boat and watch them drown the Spaniard. And I'm sorry if this is a spoiler alert for everybody. We told you guys in the beginning that there will be spoilers. Okay. So for anybody currently watching the movie, we're sorry, not sorry, but we told you. But also I want to reiterate something about the female roles in the movie. Once again, this is a movie about Black female warriors, not dainty princesses. You cannot expect there to be feminine women in a movie about female warriors. I got to keep reiterating that to you guys. Now, someone bought a Wonder Woman earlier that nobody, boycotted Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was a fictional character and she embodied strength. Okay. But she's more acceptable because Wonder Woman looked feminine, didn't she? She looked cute. She had the long flowing hair. So we had no problem with Wonder Woman, but we're having a problem with Woman King. Because Woman King looks like us, doesn't she? And I wonder if some of us don't like how we look in our natural state. Because, see, Wonder Woman looks like how white women look in their natural state with the long hair. But see, our hair, when it grows out, it's not long. We look like how Viola Davis's character looked in Woman King. That's what we look like, y'all. That's how we look as warriors and super women. That's what we look like. So if you don't like how these women were depicted, once again, there's a real picture of these warriors, and how they depicted the women in this movie is exactly what we looked like in real life. I don't have a problem with what we look like in real life. But I'm thinking that the people that are protesting the most, you do. You want to see dainty princesses with the hair braided long, flowing down the back. And if you want to see dainty princesses and queens, they had princesses and queens in this movie. It was the king's wives. They looked like that, but they were not warriors. Their skin was milky and creamy because they were not on battlefields. They showed all different types of women in this movie. So this is the reason why I'm confused as to why people have a problem with this movie. You saw soft women being feminine in the movie. You saw regular everyday women, and you saw women who chose to be warriors. You saw all kinds, but there are some people that don't accept all kinds, and we got all kinds in real life. Hold on. Melanated Vessel says, maybe others, not me. I don't want to see Black women bodies being beat on. We've seen it enough. This is literally, again, a movie about a Black female warrior unit called the Agojie. You can't have a movie about female warriors without seeing women getting beat on. Now, I could see if you had that same energy with the color purple. Celie was getting her ass kicked every other scene. Okay? But this is a movie about Black female warriors. You got anything, CK?
I do. So people need to understand that this movie took place during the 17th to 19th century, like in that time period. So back then, even now, women are getting beat up on. And they addressed it in the first act where they said, or one of the trainees said, you're either the prey or you're the hunter. So I know we don't want to see women get beat up on, but women get beat up on all the time. in relationships, in movies, in real life. It just happens. And you have to make a choice. Do you want to be prey or do you want to be the hunter like the women did in the movie? So I want to kind of address the smoke that people have for John Boyega character, the king. So his portrayal was of a king who was indecisive, who was unexperienced, unsure of himself, emotional. He wanted to look good in front of people. And that kind of is the point. So in my opinion, the reason why his portrayal is seen as negative is because it's meant to justify that a man in a patriarchy who is given the leadership role by birthright needs help, which that's the reason why there was the woman king enacted. So every character, even the supporting characters and the characters with small parts, they all had a hero's journey, or they started off one way and they ended the movie a better version of themselves. So John Boyega, the king, he started off indecisive. He was just walking around. Only thing that was successful with him is what he got as far as advice from the general. And by the end of the movie, he made her the woman king, so that he no longer has to fumble around and seem like he's incompetent, because now he has someone to help him rule, because he's a young guy and he was just continuing what his brother had done with selling people into slavery. And through Viola Davis's character's assistance, he's now going to move the kingdom from the slave trade, selling black people to white people, to selling spices. The general, Viola Davis's character, she also had her own journey. She had PTSD from when she was captured, and the other character, who was like her friend, Sheila's character, had somewhat given her like a prophecy that someone was going to come, or something was going to come, and it was going to be kind of like her having to face her fears. Viola Davis, like Faith said, in the second act, saw her rapist come, the opposing general. She saw him. She was visibly afraid. She was supposed to go there with heads in a basket, drop the head, saying, we're no longer giving you slaves, and run away. She stayed to fight him, and she almost got captured. She did exactly what she told the others not to do, which is stay together. And towards the end of the movie, she overcame her fear and defeated the other general. Then you had Lashana's character, who was strong, who was confident, and she said, if you know, she was telling the main character that I'm here to train you, I don't care about you. And in the end, she sacrificed herself for the main character to be free. The main character had her own arc where she went from feeling like she wasn't a part of something, rebellious, breaking rules. She broke a lot of rules, put herself in danger, where towards the end of the movie, she learned to work well with others, and she became matured by the things that she experienced. Let's see. And then Sheila should have been given more to do. I feel like she really didn't have much of a journey as far as the character that she portrayed. So she was more of just like supporting Viola Davis's character, which is fine. You know, in that type of movie, you can only focus on so much character development. But and even the Portuguese guy, he started off the movie as basically being a part of white supremacy and the white establishment. He journeyed there because he wanted to go to his mother's country of Dahomey, or nation of or kingdom of Dahomey. He went there, and he went from being a passive person to actually actively getting involved and going against the white patriarchal system that he was a part of, enslaving people. And like Faith said, he had a choice. He could help defend the white people who were enslaving others, or defend Dahomey. And that part of the movie, in the third act, The white people seemed like they were an overwhelming force. Most people in his position would have continued to support the white enslaver patriarchy. He went against them, faced his fear, and helped the main character and the rest of them get free, including the ones that were in the boat that drowned the guy he came with. Well, if you think about it, okay, what happens to him now? The movie didn't address what happened to him after that conflict, because it didn't show him going back to Dahomey to kick it with them. Did he go back home? If he does go back home, he's like a sole survivor. So knowing exactly what he was going to return home to or return to, if he sided with the Dahomey, he went against his fears and helped them be free. So almost every character had like either what was coming to him, like the opposing general, or they had like an arc where at the end of the movie or by the end of the third act they were better people for it. And again, just supporting what Faith was saying, there wasn't dainty princesses in the movie, but in the third act they showed the warriors in dresses, singing, dancing, and being feminine. They showed that. So if you go and watch the movie and you of course have the suspension of disbelief, you will see everything you could possibly want in a movie like this when you first look at the poster and see the title Woman King. But go ahead, Faith.
Yeah, and I just want to go back a little bit in the movie and talk about conversations that the main character had with her trainer, and how the trainer was telling her that as a warrior, when you choose to be a warrior, you forego having a family. The men are permitted to have families, but that is because they don't view it as being a detriment or a distraction for men to have families. But the women were not permitted to have families because they said that would be somewhat of a distraction for them. I forget exactly what they said in the movie. Do you remember what they said in the movie about?
It was I don't remember word for word, but pretty much a distraction.
Yeah, a sign of weakness. It was a weakness for women to fall in love and to have families. And I can kind of understand their reasoning, because see, men don't carry the babies. So you won't have run the risk of men being out on the battlefield pregnant, like the woman king, Viola Davis's character. She was pregnant and she was a warrior. So that must have been horrible for her. And then, men, when they die, the women and their children are going to be taken care of. But if a woman warrior dies, who's going to take care of the children? So there's a lot of compilations with women warriors having families. It's just not feasible. So that's the reason why the men were allowed to have families and the women wasn't back then. And that was their reasoning. So if you chose that life, and it was a choice, they didn't force anybody, and you had to earn it. They didn't just let any woman become a warrior. And a lot of women in the movie, they also stated that there was one recruit that they had. She was actually one of the girls that they captured from the I believe it was the opposing tribe. I forget the name of the tribe, but she actually was a young woman that they captured from the opposing tribe. And rather than her become a slave, she said she would rather become a warrior than be prey. So she
Mm-hmm.
made the choice. Like CK said, a lot of times they were given a non-choice. And then even then, if you become a warrior, you run the risk of dying on that battlefield. So it's a non-choice choice either way. Either you be a slave or you die on the battlefield. That's the two choices that you had. But I'm
Also,
sorry. Mhm.
Also, the reason why the Agojie couldn't have families is because back then women were second and third class citizens. So
Right.
if you were a part of a family, you're going to be working fields. You're going to be cleaning houses, taking care of children. So you wouldn't be able to be a warrior. And that's something that, people need to understand, that if you're considered property, you don't have many choices. And a lot of women, I'm not going to name any names, but they're like, oh, well, I wouldn't want to be a warrior. Well, then you'd be property. See, being able to come on YouTube and run your mouth, you're able to do that because you have certain freedoms and liberties in your personal life, to where you can own a computer, where you can have access to the internet and log on without a man's help. And you can say whatever you want to say without someone saying, you know what, I have a problem with what you're saying, go get your husband. You don't have a husband? Well, then you shouldn't be on here. Log off
Right.
immediately. So that's the thing. You were either property or a hunter. To me, the movie was a great example of women empowerment, showing that. And of course, I'm not a woman, so I don't know, but Faith can let me know if this is true or not. But basically, if women work together in a sisterhood and you move as one, you can overcome a lot of obstacles and barriers. That was one of
Yes.
the main takeaways of the movie. And I understand that nowadays there's not really a sisterhood, so there isn't a lot of breaking barriers and overcoming obstacles. It's experiencing something and having to be reactive versus proactive. So the movie was showing you them training, preparing to go against the Oyo Empire. And because they trained together, they prepared together, they were able to win together. The men who were moving as individuals, relying on their firearms, which were flawed, because in a
Mm-hmm.
melee event, you don't have time to put the gun, use the powder, and reload. That's how they overcame the men that were moving individually, because the Agojie were moving together as one unit, one voice. Anyone who served in the military will tell you, when it comes to an operation, everybody has a job that they do. You train together, you live together, you move as one. And as long as everyone sticks to the strategy, that increases the chance of success, because you know what you're doing and you know what everyone else is doing. But what happens when you act like an individual, let's say in the army? Stuff starts to fall apart. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not doing what you're trained to do. And now people have to pick up the slack that you have created, because you're not training like you fight and not fighting like you trained.
Right. But
So,
let me can I cut you off real quick, because there's a
oh,
lot
go
of
ahead.
this. People are getting the wrong idea here. And shout out to Can't Hide, by the way. She's been a long, long time viewer of this channel. So I just wanted to highlight her real quick. Hey girl. But no, they did not show a pregnant woman fighting. Viola Davis's character, when they did the flashback, after she was raped, she found that she was with child. And of course, she could not fight while being with child. It's just that with her being with child, she basically had to retire from the battlefield and kind of tend to the business of giving birth. That's what I was saying. There was no fight scenes of women fighting while pregnant. Um, that's one of the that was one of the reasons that I gave, that they pretty much said that women who pick that lifestyle should not have families and should not get married, and that's one of the reasons that I gave. So no, there was no pregnant women on the battlefield. So I'm sorry if I gave you that impression. But as far as people in the chat room talking about the historical references of the film and that it was not accurate, historically accurate, once again, CK and I said, and I don't know if a lot of you were here at the beginning, but we both said that this was based on a true story. And when they say based on a true story, this does not mean that this is the exact story. It's based on it. The characters in the movie did not actually exist in real life, by the way. And I'll tell you something else. They don't actually have the real people to interview in order to say, okay, well, this was this person and this was that person. They had to make up fictional characters to carry on the movie. So that's the reason why they tell you based on a true story. So this was not completely and historically accurate. So I just want to, put that out there for you guys. That's what based on a true story is. It's not the exact story. CK, did you want to expound on anything?
Yeah, so I was asked in the comment section that the women didn't have a choice. And so what is meant by not having a choice or a non-choice choice is that so the women were second class citizens. So normally you would be sold to some older man and you'd be his wife and you'd be cooking and cleaning for him. That was the path of a woman. So you didn't really have choice in that. In the first act, they showed the main character. She was told by another woman, "Hey, you've been married off to somebody again," and the main character didn't even know. She found out through a third party, and she didn't want to marry the guy who they were trying to marry her off to, and so they kind of gave her to the king. So that's what I mean by there's not really a choice for women, because normally, from what I've read, if a woman doesn't want to be married to somebody, like the main character didn't want to be married, then she might be excommunicated from the kingdom. She might be which is also being disowned. She might join in the people who are enslaved and work alongside them, and then be sold off into slavery. The women were somewhat passive. They didn't have paths to be royalty. I mean, they could be one of the king's wives, maybe. But their path for the average woman would be working like a Hebrew slave or being sold into slavery or something. There wasn't, you didn't have the option to be a dentist or a writer or a builder or, to be even a housewife and rest on your laurels. The guy who she was going to be married to in the first act had like 3 fields for her to work. Like, like Celie off of Color Purple.
Right.
And so people volunteered for the Agojie, and when asked why they wanted to be there, one of the trainees was like, you're either the prey or you're the hunter. So a lot of people who are making comments, it's kind of obvious they haven't seen the movie, which is fine because anybody can be here. But based off a lot of the comments that I'm reading, a lot of you all have not seen the movie, and it's somewhat of a disservice to you to hear us do the review and get the wrong idea, because the best way for you to absorb the experience of the movie is to actually see it and then maybe come back. So a lot of comments, we're ignoring because it's obvious you haven't seen the movie, and you should see the movie and then perhaps come back and we can address what you have to say in the comment section. But it's obvious that there's a lot of ignorance. But go ahead, Faith.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that people referring to inaccuracies of history, people referring to the fact that they don't like to see women being beat up, even though this is a film literally about women warriors. It's just a whole litany of people, just having all types of objections to this movie about Black female warriors. But once again, this movie was compared to Black Panther. I didn't see none of you that are even here complaining about Black Panther like this. I really, really think that our people that look like us, and people that look like those women in the movie, and people that look like the women in the real picture, I think that we have a problem with Black women. period. Being seen as strong, being seen as how can I say, warriors. We have a problem with that. And
Yeah, and
we got this chip on our shoulder, by the way. We black women, we are the only group of women that walk around with this chip on our shoulder. And I understand where it comes from, because I do understand that historically the way that we've been promoted, it has been in a bad light, very bad light. But a lot of the promotion that we've gotten so far, with us having how many black women being nominated for Miss America, Miss Universe, you know, I mean, we've come a long way, baby. So I kind of think that, you know, we're starting to jump on and we're starting to nitpick at everything because we developed this chip on our shoulder. Now, I can understand if this was a movie about black princesses and they picked the most manly looking, ugly characters to play that what's supposed to be delicate looking, beautiful princesses. I can understand the outrage then. But we're talking about a movie that's about black female warriors. You're not going to get delicate. You're not going to get pretty. You're not going to get any of that from a movie like this. Okay? So I just kind of think that people need to kind of I don't want to sound like I'm admonishing you, but we got to grow up. You know what I'm saying? We gotta, you know, at some point maturity has to kick in. We can't be throwing tantrums over every single thing that happens. And I also want to point out, while people are talking about these were white women that were producing, directing, and writing the screen, the film, and all this other stuff, which one of you knows of a black person that thought of doing a movie about an all black female warrior regiment? Which one of us thought of it? Which, okay, I can see if these white women stole the concept and idea from a black person, but there was no black people even thinking about doing a film like this. I just want to point this out. But every time one of them steps up and does a film that one of us should have thought to do, we got something to say about how they did it. We didn't put no money towards this film. And I want to point out that this time they didn't do us like they did us with the 10 Commandments and the Egyptians and the old Bible films, where they cast all these white people in roles that should have been going to black people. This time they actually got the casting right. And we're still complaining. I just want to point that out to all of you. Which one of us had the idea first, and how come we didn't do it if we so mad? But
so
that's it. Rant over.
so so I want to kind of address there's the comments about the movie not being historically accurate. It actually is. Every event that happened in the movie happened in real life. So it's set 200 years ago, and the reason why they used made up characters as opposed to the real names of actual people is for storytelling purposes and to not offend the descendants of people who actually come from that tribe. So for storytelling purposes, there's no way to know actual conversations because they weren't writing stuff down as far as actual dialogue. The training was accurate. Their participation in the slave trade was accurate. The empires that they were conflicting with and the slave traders, that was accurate. They even filmed the movie in a location that was accurate as far as where the Dahomey actually existed. A lot of the attire was accurate. You know, they gave accuracy the best they could with storytelling in mind. And people don't have smoke like this for Dunkirk and other movies that have won Oscars. You know, we no one gives Roots smoke. You don't hear anyone say, "Well, show me Kunta Kinte." You just believe that the person who wrote Roots and says this is his lineage, you just believe that to be true. Same thing with The Color Purple. No one gets upset that there's not a Seeley that existed. You just go in, have the suspension of disbelief, and you enjoy the movie and you focus on the takeaways. And I think we're nitpicking because it's dark skinned black women in the movie. We're finding different reasons to hate it. And based off of what's being put in the comment section and what other people have had as far as the review, people just want to hate it because it's dark skinned black women and they're not fat. Okay, let's just take the gloves off and just say it. Anytime dark skinned black women are depicted as like sweating, working, being aggressive, exercising, we turn our nose up at that piece of artwork or art
Right.
medium. And if the characters in the movie were light skinned, there wouldn't be smoke like this. If the characters were men, it wouldn't be smoke. I've mentioned Dunkirk several times. That's based off of a true story, actual event. No one says, well, Tom Hardy's character, where is he in real life? No, you just go and watch it and you're good. Like with any other movie, you know, movies that are based off of, let's say, Martin Luther King Jr. There's like 50 movies out about the guy. No one gives smoke.
Yeah.
There's so many different movies about him. No one.
And a lot of those are inaccurate, but nobody boycotted any of it.
Same thing for Malcolm X. There was stuff that was inaccurate about that. People don't give smoke to that. So that's the thing that we're just finding and digging up reasons to hate this movie, and that's fine. You know, you have your own opinion. If you don't want to see it and you want to hate it, oh, it's not historically accurate. That's fine, but it is historically accurate. It is.
And Melanated Vessel says she's specifically talking about the violence, so not anything else. Once again, what kind of movie are we talking about here? This is a movie about Black female warriors. There's gonna be violence against women in this movie.
And the violence wasn't even that extreme.
It really wasn't.
None of the women in the movie were shown with limbs cut off. None of them were shown with heads cut off. Even the grape scene was kind of cut and chopped up, so you really didn't see that much with that. Majority of the action scenes were simulated violence. It wasn't like 300 where you see blood squirting out of someone's arm or neck or anything like that. It wasn't that graphic. The main focus was on the choreography, which was beautifully done. I think it was an acceptable level of violence for it to be a movie about combat and about war. And I know we don't like violence, but it's a part of life. It's a part of history. And they didn't do more than what was necessary, and they didn't do too few violent scenes to make it seem like this is not something that could have happened. To me, I think this is something to be proud of. The leadership that Viola Davis's character showed was great. The training was amazing. Just the non-verbal communication that each of the actresses and actors had, it really felt like there was actual stakes in place where there was a possibility that a character that you may be watching in the movie might not make it to the end, and one of them didn't. So one thing I'm hoping, this is probably going to be stupid, but one thing I'm hoping is that for part 2, they say, "Oh, she was deleted in the first movie, but she has a twin sister. We could bring the actress back." You know that I'm hoping for something goofy like that because I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed all the acting. It it was a it was very realistic. The plot was exciting, thrilling, and believable. There was an acceptable buildup of tension with a satisfying climax by the third act. It it's definitely something. If you enjoy a movie with good writing and good dialogue and great acting, if you enjoy action, if you enjoy a roller coaster ride, if you want to feel powerful scenes with a film that's close to reality, this is a must see.
Yeah,
And
I'm with Ken Hyde. She says I'm all for black women getting their warriorettes on and kicking ass. Like I said, I it was like nostalgia for me. It was so good. Ken Hyde, you would love the fight scenes. I mean, I absolutely love the fighting choreography that they did a great job with the acting on that. But now, as far as people keep harping on the historicalness, once again, we're comparing apples to oranges because Yellow Rose is saying if they showed MLK being a pulpit pimp and shooting up heroin, would you say, oh well, not fact, but based on a true story? Well, here's the thing. We knew that MLK existed in real life. The only thing that these people knew about the Akojies was that they were a warrior unit in Dahomey. They didn't know of any actual women's how can I say names or whatever in the actual unit. So that's the reason why they came and made up fictional characters. They made up fictional characters. Now, Martin Luther King, that was an actual person that people actually knew about and you could read about in real life. They have biographies about the man. His wife is still alive. You know, he has children, you know, that they can go and reference. What a Koji warrior could these people go and reference? So that's the reason why they made up a character. You're talking about a made up character versus a real life person. Come on, people. Come on.
I just want to say that okay, so the only fictional character is Viola
Oh, Coretta
Davis.
Scott is deceased. I'm sorry, she's deceased. But you know, when she was alive, they when they did a lot of his biography, they did reference her, but she's deceased. My bad.
So the only fictional character was the one Viola Davis played, uh, Naniska. She's the only fictional character. Now, it's been speculated that her name was inspired by a Agojie teenage recruit of the same name, who was written about by a French naval officer in 1889. John Boyega's character, who played King Gezo, a real life figure who ruled Dahomey from 1818 to 1858 and engaged in the Atlantic slave trade, portrayed in the movie. Um, Fianus Tiffin, plays the white Portuguese speaking slave trader Santo Ferreira, who is fictional and portrayed as an enemy to Gezo. So that's two fictional characters right there. But the character was possibly loosely inspired by Francisco Felix de Sousa, a Brazilian slave trader who, in actuality, helped Gezo gain power. So the characters in the movie were based on real life characters, but to not offend the descendants of the tribe and people who were involved in the events. And for storytelling purposes, they created characters based on actual characters. So it is historically accurate. It is historically accurate, but you're not going to see it on National Geographic because it's made for Hollywood. And I think a
Right.
lot of us really don't watch enough movie review content or things from a director standpoint when watching movies. The movie, so it didn't flop.
That's what I
It
was
didn't
looking at. I
flop.
was like, the movie did not flop. People literally looked at the ticket sales from day one of the movie, and then they went running amok talking about, oh, it flopped. It only grossed 6 million at the box office on the first day.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah,
actually a success as of right now. It's a success. It's historically accurate, as much as it can be for a Hollywood movie. And I'm sure like other um documentaries are going to come out about the people and highlight some things that may have not been highlighted in the movie. So the main takeaway is this is something that Black people should be proud of. So if and I was talking to Faith about this, and this is, shout out to Dieter Rail because he pointed this out. Black people associate ourselves and our history with hardship. So if it's a movie about slavery or Jim Crow, we believe it because it shows us suppressed or oppressed because we identify with hardship.
right.
But if it's a movie about us being directors, scientists, inventors, stuff that we actually did, people are going to be like, oh, well, I just won't accept it. That's not historically accurate, even though we are actually doing stuff, but white people are taking credit for things that we have done. So anytime there's a movie that's about Black people that shows us in a positive light, because we don't see ourselves as positive people collectively, we want to hate it, we want to tear it down, we want to destroy it. If we were slaves or we were getting beat up during Jim Crow, there wouldn't be a backlash. There wouldn't be a quote unquote boycott. So you got to
No,
understand.
we historically love slave movies. Nobody boycotted. What was that? How many days? 12 Years a Slave.
12 Years a
Nobody,
Slave.
nobody
Right.
boycotted that.
Mm-hmm. Nobody. People loved it. People loved it.
Yeah, we went back twice on Sunday to see that.
Even the Django. People
Yeah,
love
but
Samuel L. Jackson.
a movie with Black people actually being depicted as warriors and winning, and Black women not just getting beat, but Black women also hammering down on some people. Like they're actually beating people instead of getting beat. Oh, the nerve of them.
Even Hidden Figures. People were up in arms about Hidden Figures. That would never have happened, even though it's based off a true story with
I remember when they were against Hidden Figures. I'm like, wait a minute. This is a movie, a positive movie about Black women and they're being pioneers and they're complaining about this. Like, what do you all want? Do you want more movies where we're slaves and we're getting whipped on? Is that what you all want? Because y'all don't seem to be boycotting those movies.
Right. Even the Michael Jordan movie, the Last Dance. People were up in arms about that. Michael Jordan, why they got him, so good? It's like historically, he was scoring those points, and the Bulls were winning those games. So if it's not a slave movie or showing us being suppressed or oppressed during Jim Crow, we're up in arms about it. It's let it be a Medea movie. If it's a Medea movie, everybody goes and they're happy. People will talk crap about men dressing up as women. People will complain about that, but then go and laugh at a Medea movie because it shows us in a negative light.
Oh, yeah. That Diary of a Mad Black Woman really pissed me off.
See?
Like, not only did he kick her ass, but then she went back and took care of him. But I did like the part in the movie where she kicked his ass. I did like when she got her lick back. You know what? I like getting lick backs. I think everybody should get their lick back. But anyway, that's just me.
And see the movie coming out, I think next month, called Till, about Emmett Till. No one's gonna boycott that. No one's boycotting that. The woman who lied on him is still walking around. Well, not walking around, but she's like an old lady, is still alive. No one's got smoke for her. No one's gonna boycott Till. People are going to see that in droves. Yeah, I want to, more of that. Because it took place during Jim Crow and it shows us being suppressed and oppressed. But if it's not a slave movie or a Jim Crow movie, we don't want it. We don't like it. We're boycotting it. We don't have a problem with it. It's like, it's cool. Let it be a movie about gangs or are selling drugs or being pimps. I don't see anybody up in arms about movies that took place during the 70s, the black exploitation movies.
Oh no, they love, what's that one movie that black people love to reference all the time? Superfly or some stuff like that.
Yeah, the pimp movie. I forgot the name of it.
I forgot the name of it too. Shaft and we love us some Shaft.
Foxy Brown.
Shut your mouth. Just we love that stuff. But now something comes out, a warrior movie showing black women strong. We not getting our ass kicked for the change. We kicking ass for a change. That's what's going on in this movie.
Yeah, the Mac. If it's the Mac, we're all over it. We don't want to see us slapped around and hurt, but we're not protesting the Mac. We're not up in arms about the Mac.
Chef Rocket held up in Harlem. Yep. We love that stuff. We love them Negro movies, them good Negro movies where we being treated like the good Negroes that's running around here pimping and hoeing and man, and what it is and all this other stupid stuff. No, we love that. But the warrior movies that show us it in strength and unity, strength and unity is what I get from Woman King. Yeah. That's what you get when you watch this movie. You get a feeling of strength and unity and actual sisterhood. And we got black women saying, no, we can't have sisterhood because it's dark-skinned black women and it's racism, preacherism, and colorism, and whatever isms I can think of. I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to come up with another ism, but it's evil.
Right. I mean, the same way you don't want to protest a movie before you're born, you also don't want to protest a time period before you're born. It's the same premise. Let it be a movie like The Help. We'll go to The Help in droves, be clapping our hands and happy, or let it be a horror movie where the black person dies in the first scene.
You know what? You got a point. Where was y'all at when they had The Help out? Now that was embarrassing.
Oh, people was going in their maid outfits to the movies.
Oh yeah, they was in they Miss Susie homemaker outfit. Oh, I'm going to see The Help. Oh my goodness, it's a movie about black women cleaning people's houses and being shat on.
Yeah. So let us die in the first scene. When the movie hasn't even got the credits rolled good, we're all about that. Or let it be a movie where, black people are just something negative going on. We're cool with that. If it's a movie about black folks cheating, stealing, robbing each other, those movies we're good with that. But if it's a movie where it shows us actually winning fights as kings and queens, royalty, generals, in positions of power, like movies used to show us back in the 90s. We don't like it. Don't you? You know what, Faith, believe it or not, but people were actually up in arms because of Steve Urkel, because we can't see ourselves as inventors. People focus on Steve Urkel being a nerd, but he was an inventor. We can't see ourselves as an inventor. We also can't see ourselves as cops that help people.
We are very negative. We don't focus on the positive. Like I saw nothing but positives in this movie.
Right.
When I was sitting there with CK and we were like holding hands and I had my head on his chest and I was like, yeah, get him, girl. Like, oh yeah, that sisterhood, this is what I'm talking about. And I was so happy to see mother and daughter, coming together and becoming a family. I was so happy to see that she didn't run off with the biracial guy. Now it might have been implied in the movie. I know I saw somebody else's review where they said that the girl was a virgin. Nowhere in the movie did it say she was a virgin. A lot of stuff might have been implied, but it could very well be that she wasn't a virgin because once again she was an orphan, and her father didn't treat her very well, and she said this many times in the movie. So whether she was a virgin is up for debate. But there was a part in the movie where she came out of the window when she realized that her sister tribe had come to fight. And I guess somebody that did the review thought that maybe she might have had sex with the Portuguese guy. I don't know. You didn't see any type of sex scene in this movie, people. So that's the reason why I said go watch the movie for yourself. Make your own mind up about it. It was a very empowering movie that embodied Black woman empowerment. Now, I know it doesn't go along with this whole soft girl era thing that we got going, but it's not a movie about soft girls. It's a movie about warriors.
They were soft in the third act. After the
Right.
conflict was over, they were able to let their hair down. Now, if she would have met the Portuguese guy in the forest and would have been twerking, nobody would have had a problem with that. People would have been like, "Oh, okay, she's twerking. That makes sense." But they had actual African dances and celebrations that they were doing. They were soft in the third act. They were even soft and feminine and let their guard down while bathing. And they showed scenes of that. But it wasn't like raunchy or anything. It was tasteful. It was very tasteful. This is a movie you could possibly take your children to and have a discussion afterwards. There's no scenes in the movie where you're going to have to kind of be cringy or cringe at the fact that your family's going to see it. I know it's not really a movie for families because it talks about and shows brief images of the grape, and then also it has different, it has violence as far as the choreographed violence and whatnot. But if you're watching a movie like Saving Private Ryan, Dunkirk, other period pieces that depict war and hardship, this movie is not even close to the level of other movies that are out there that are historically accurate, like this one is, that depicts violence like this one does. It's just not at the level that other reviewers are making it seem like, and it really is safe to see, even if you don't like violence and conflict, which is a part of our everyday life. But go ahead, Faith.
Yeah, and I just also want to point out we always complain that they outsource a lot of American roles to foreigners. But in this film, I saw a lot of American actors and actresses. I just want to point that out. I saw a lot of Black people. Somebody's comment, I think it was Diamonds and Pearls. She said, "Did y'all see how dedicated those women were to be trained for that movie? Viola's trailer was awesome. I can't wait to see." And that's just it. These Black women and men who played these roles in this movie worked very hard to bring those characters to life, and they're paid, guys. These are Black people getting roles that don't depict them as the regular run of the mill Pookie and Ray Ray or the pimp or any of the other stuff that we complain about. So I want you to also know that when you're boycotting this movie, you're also boycotting the hard work of those actors and actresses that put together this great movie. And there's nothing negative in it at all whatsoever. You got anything to add, CK?
I think one other thing, and that is uh, this is a win. I mean, there were the main actresses and actor, I mean, they are from like Britain and parts of England, and I think Viola Davis may have been the only American black actress, which is fine because I mean, this is a win for black people. It's showing that a movie that the main cast is black can be successful. It's just like The Last of the Mohicans. This has been compared to The Last of the Mohicans, which Native Americans not up in arms about that. Braveheart, Gladiator. It's at the same level as those movies. And that's what you all have to understand, that we as black people don't really have a lot of movies that are being compared to movies that have been deemed great, epic, and classics. When you think of a black movie that's a classic, what do you think of? Friday. You think of Boys in the Hood. You think of movies like that. You don't think of, and even Black Panther, that was based off of stuff that was like superheroes, a lot of CGI. How many movies are that are black with black actresses and actors can be compared to Gladiator? I mean, think about it.
Not many.
Not many. So this right here is, to me, it was a turning point in black cinema, because in Nigeria, they've already declared they're only going to use Nigerians for their movies. So here in America, we struggle when it comes to cinema. And we're going to struggle even more because of the whole Will Smith thing. So this is not the time to focus on differences, nitpicking. This movie should be where people are coming together and being on code.
Exactly. And also, it's a shame, but we really don't have a black version of Nollywood here in the United States either. Now, I do respect Nollywood because they put their own stuff together. They're not, relying on other groups like we do here in the United States. That's the reason why I have so much respect for Tyler Perry and Oprah. I do. I wish that more black actors and actresses, instead of going against Tyler Perry and Oprah so much, they really need to be working with them because they got their own production studios. Oprah has her own network. Well, she had her own network before she sold it. But they really should have been working with them instead of, like we always do, like the crabs in the barrel that we are. We can't unite and work together and build off of anything. But we will complain about something that other groups own and their platforms and how they're not getting it right for us. We'll complain.
Well, they showed them selling people into slavery in the movie. So, I mean, there's that. And majority of people who make movies in America bought people sold into slavery. Most of the businesses you shop were created from slavery and wealth created from slavery. So if you're going to boycott the movie because they sold ancestors into slavery, you literally are going to have to live off the land and not support anything like gas stations, restaurants. You can't live anywhere because the people who built your apartment complex or your home probably participated in slavery. And it's a movie, y'all. It's a movie.
Right.
So this
It is a movie.
so I don't know if I'm kind of I'm gonna put this question in the back chat. I don't know if you wanna do this.
Let me see.
Just text it.
All right, I
Go
see
ahead.
it.
It's up to you if you want to do that.
No.
If not, I'm not gonna ask.
Emphatically
Okay.
no, no. Um yeah, that's pretty much all I've got as far as the movie. Like I said, I think it was a masterpiece. I give it a 10 out of 10. And people have their agendas. Like I saw a lot of agendas on here. Like Chrissy, of course, she's into her talking points about black female promotion, especially for dark skinned women. So of course, she's going to come at this from that agenda. You got black women that don't like other black women, so they're going to come at it with an agenda of black women being depicted as being disrespectful and haughty and loudmouth and being disrespectful to black men. I've heard that agenda. um there's so many agendas on here, and I think that a lot of people have been brainwashed by this point, by the different agendas that they hear online, that they cannot objectively just look at this movie for what it is. Entertainment is not here for your historical factual whatever it is that you're trying to get out of it. They utilized some aspects of true life facts to create characters for this movie that was based on actual events, but it's not actually stemming from those actual events. And see, we have a disconnect in knowing the difference. And that's the reason why you have people with these agendas. You have these historians that are up in arms, and they know nothing, they understand nothing about production and what based on a true story actually means. So you have a lot of people that's just running around here wanting to be angry for whatever reason, but nobody's being objective. So I just wanted to give this film a fair shake out here and be objective about what I saw. And what I saw was a masterpiece. What I saw was the hard work of a lot of black people from different areas of the world. And I think that it's a disservice to their acting. I think it's a disservice that we give to ourselves as black people when we sit here and we nitpick over these things. And like I said, this movie is about black female warriors of that time, based off a true story, but not grounded in actual fact or, as far as the characters are concerned. It's not based on actual fact of any particular character of that time. These are made up characters. So you have to really see the movie for yourself and come up with your own conclusion. I would not feed into any of the agendas that you're hearing online, because people have a reason for why they will selectively decide to pitch a certain image to you in a certain way, because that's what they're pitching on their channel all the time. So they're not going to switch it up because of this movie. A lot of people didn't even watch the actual movie, and you can tell when you go and see the actual movie and you compare it to what you've actually heard these people say online, you'll understand what CK and I are talking about. But with that, I'm done. I have nothing else. CK, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
That was a great final thought, Faith. Uh, Thanks for having me up here, and I'm good to go.
All right. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in to the Commendable Faith movie review. And please leave your comments in the comment section, and we will see you in the next one. So, peace. I love every single last one of you. Thank you for watching, and we are out. Holla.